Welcome into episode 216. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at PegasusPodcastByKSN@gmail.com. Christian, I'm just going to say it. Football's back. It's not really back, but it's back.
Is it? Is football
It
back?
just feels like it is. I think it's just because the video game came out, maybe.
Maybe.
But
I was very caught off guard by you saying that because I had not been informed that football was back. So I was surprised and thought maybe
I,
I'd missed a week -4 game or something. But
I think this is the part of like the off season where like we can just start every week. Just feels like, all right, football's back.
yeah, I got a little preview with the video game for how August is going to go for us because I felt like we were getting close to that game pretty quickly. And then the last 4 or 5 days before I could play were agonizing. Just took years, it felt like. And I know that's going to be us when the New Hampshire game's coming up.
And then you played it on what, Monday? And
Monday at
I
4
waited
p.m.
until Friday, and I played it Friday.
You did.
But it's going well. I'm enjoying it.
I'm having a very good time.
The most fun thing that you've had happen so far?
Not the online dynasty I'm in with some of our friends where I had to pick a 1-star program and play on Heisman, and I actually can't score a single point. Like, and to be clear,
I don't know why you did that.
I don't mean it wasn't my rules. I did not set these rules, and I want to be clear that I'm Georgia State in this game. I want to be clear that it's not like I'm bad at it. I mean, in my last 2 games, I lost 55-0 and 35-0 to other Sun Belt teams. I genuinely cannot play that game on Heisman with a bad team. So
I'm not upset about.
Part's not been fun.
I'm not upset about not being part of this anymore. Like I don't know. There was a time where like with our friend Zach kept asking like, are you gonna do the dynasty with us? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I don't know. You guys started it yesterday. I was busy, but I also wasn't told like, oh, we're starting this right now. Are you available? And I was like, okay. Once I found out you've been playing it for like 6 hours, I was like, oh, I guess I'm not a part of it anymore.
I don't know if that's a good thing to admit that we started playing at noon yesterday, and I think I turned off my PlayStation at like 8. And there was not a break in there.
Then you told me you guys were playing on Heisman and it was the worst thing ever. And I was like, okay, I'm not missing it then.
To be clear, it's not, I'm the worst one. Like, they're all doing okay. No one's doing good, but a couple of them have scored points and I have not yet. I just learned about actually, I can't say that on the podcast. Sorry. There's a little bit of, no, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's just what someone in that league listens to the podcast and there's a little thing that we weren't telling them. So they need to not hear it on the podcast. So okay. Sorry. That was so inside baseball and so stupid to include on the podcast. But I just realized as I'm about to say it, I'm like, he listens and he'll find out that way. So sorry. But yeah, I'm having a very fun time. Randy Pittman is insane in that game. RJ Harvey is insane in that game. You know who might be the best? Chauncey Magwood. Unstoppable.
Yeah.
Game. Shame he won't actually be playing for UCF this year, but great in the game.
What if he is in the game spoiling how good he's going to be in real life?
Highly doubt it. He's going to get killed by that first season update, man. It's going to be tough.
Yeah. This is like one of my favorite podcasts we do every off season. Usually do it around the same time in July. It's our Overs and Unders podcast. We've got 12 topics for UCF's 2024 season. Set some overs and unders for them, and there's some stuff to talk about here. It's been like I think this might be the first because like we spend. I don't know if you want to say February or just maybe March until I guess early July, like talking about like, oh, what could the season look like? Kind of like loosely. And now it's like we're kind of getting into the area of the offseason where it's like, oh, we actually have to like form opinions about how this is going to go, like how we actually think it's going to happen.
Yeah, which is always fun because then we have to actually go on the record with predictions, which was hard even when they were in the AAC, and when they're in this league, it's next to impossible, but we're going to attempt anyway. So that should be fun.
And I will say before we even get into them is like doing this and actually having to like form an opinion of like, I'm gonna have to go on record with this made me realize how I guess I'm more, I don't want to say I'm more down on them than I thought I'd be, but I feel less good. Like I just was surprising myself where I was like, oh yeah, I don't know if this is going to go the way we've been talking about it. But like it's such a thing, and we'll probably say this every year. It's like there is such a wide range of where this season could go. It could be 6-6 or 6-6 season, or it could be 10-2. Like I don't know. Like,
I think my floor is 7-5. I have a hard time finding them losing 6 unless the defense is actually just not better, which I don't think is possible. But I do think that what I need to square away with, and this preparing for this podcast was kind of an exercise in reality, which was not fun because no one likes reality, was that I am realizing in my head that I think I'm only considering like a Big 12 title game appearance as a successful season. And I'm not saying that's not possible because I think it's perfectly possible. There are just so many variables, some of which aren't even in UCF's control, that are going to go into whether that happens. And I don't know. Yeah. I think I just need to try to find a way to find other things as a meaningful or successful season because that's the headspace I'm in. And I think that matches with fan base. I think that's where a lot of people are at. And man, I'm not saying it can't happen. 100% could happen. It's just nowhere close to a guarantee or even like the most likely outcome.
It feels like it's doomed, and we've talked about this before
Okay.
because it feels like, yeah, Big 12 title game appearance, and then like that would make the season, obviously. Or if they say they don't make it but they beat Florida, like those are two like very
Yeah.
big out. Like if those are two big outcomes, and if you're hinging the whole season on those two things, like or one or the other, it's gonna get scary. And I'm like,
How do you think we would deal with as a fan base and a population an 8-4 season that included a Florida win? And say they went, I guess that would have them what is 6-3 in Big 12 play? No, that would have them at 5-4 in Big 12 play.
yeah.
So 8-4 overall, 5-4 in the Big 12. They won
Is
at
Florida
Florida.
good?
Florida was more or less what they thought they were going to be. Say they finished like 4-8 or 5-7.
Then so I was gonna say if Florida was actually good and we saw UCF beat Florida, but then lose a game they shouldn't have lost to finish 5-4 in the conference, we'd probably look at the season like, yeah, they beat Florida, but like they could have, like they should have been better.
Yeah,
because
if they go 5-4, there's going to be 1 or 2 close losses in there that they shouldn't have lost, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be like, wow, like if they would have just taken care of business, they would have been 9-3. And I don't know.
This is what I'm saying. Like this is a wild.
We're doomed. I think it actually is doomed. I think we're going to get to the end of the season and no one's going to be happy just because.
Well, this is why it's awful, because we're at the point where it's year 2 in the Power Four, and we're saying, what if they beat Florida and go 8-4? And we're kind of like, nah, not good enough. Like it's of all the outcomes of the season, so few end with the fan base happy. That's why I feel like the season has the potential to be really fun, also the potential to be actually miserable every week. So that's going to be cool.
Yeah.
And on that uplifting note.
Yeah, I just declared before we even got into the overs and unders that this season is doomed and we're going to be unhappy in the next 5 months. But all right, let's get into it.
They could win the Big 12. I'm not saying they couldn't. They absolutely could. It's hard to do that.
They could also, yeah, it is very hard.
We've also never seen this league before. I feel like we're not talking enough about that. This is a brand new league. We really don't know how it's going to work. We've talked about how we think it's going to go, but we just don't know.
Between that and the fact that, like, I think we've talked about it, but I think Gus even mentioned it at Media Days. Like, this schedule is like being in a completely new conference again. Yeah. They're playing all the new teams and they're playing some of the teams they didn't play last year. They only have what, two common opponents
from last year. Two.
Yeah, two. Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, they're in a new conference again.
Hard to even do anything. But let's do the predictions. Let's do it. Overs and unders. We'll start with KJ Jefferson total touchdowns. We set it at 29.5. We declared on this podcast, I got to probably get nailed down when that was so we can keep referencing it, that in order for, what was it? It was like in order for KJ to go down as like a UCF legend or something like that. Or like yeah, like up in that conversation.
To get in the conversation of Milton.
I have the sticky note right here. I don't know if somebody 5 minutes ago, I looked down to see if I still had it. It was in my desk. We had it as he needs to have 30 plus total touchdowns, 9 wins, beat Florida or win the Big 12, and then he needs to have like a big moment. And so the 30 plus total touchdowns kind of where this over under came from. The line is at 29.5. What'd you say? Over or under?
I took the under.
Oh man.
I took the under
on a sad note.
I took the under for a positive reason though. To be clear. And the reason I took the under is that I was looking at his breakdowns from past seasons. So his season high, because if he's going to hit 30, it's going to have to be with rushing touchdowns, right? He's never been a super prolific quarterback through the air as far as touchdowns. And that's also combined with a Gus Malzahn offense that, like, I don't know, it's just felt like as long as Gus Malzahn's been coached, there's a lot of like getting into the red zone and then doing things versus just like Heupel-esque where you're just like chucking the ball downfield. And they have so many weapons in their running game in particular. I just feel like RJ and Penny both existing, and then even like go down the list, like Johnny Richardson, like I feel like he's going to be robbed of rushing touchdowns due to that. Like there are so many options for like short yardage or red zone situations. I just don't think the default is going to be smash KJ into the end zone over and over again. So that's why I don't think he's going to hit it.
You're probably right. I took the over, but you're probably right about that. I took the over more thinking like DJ Mack in the 2018 AAC championship game. They get down inside the 10-yard line, just run KJ, and he's just going to run some guys over, and he's going to get in. Like
they might go for that. They absolutely
might, but they don't have to.
Every time they're within the 10. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It'll probably be a mix, right? Like I think KJ will get some touchdowns, RJ will get some touchdowns, but I don't know. For that reason, there's so many offensive weapons. I don't know. It's hard for me to see him just stacking touchdowns on his own.
I don't think he's going to like blow by it or anything. Like I think more likely it's going to be like 31 or 32. I hope it's like 35 plus. Then we'll be talking about a really, really good UCF offense. But like 31 or 32, like maybe, I don't know. So what was it? The 1 year he had at Arkansas, I think he had like 25 passing touchdowns and 9 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. Maybe like something along those lines, like 24 passing touchdowns, 8 or 7.
Yeah. His best
rushing
season
touchdowns.
statistically, it was 24 passing touchdowns with 9 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
I know we've talked at length about how he was hurt for some of last year, which is part of it, but how that new OC that they ended up firing midway through the season just didn't know how to use him. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last season.
Yeah,
how do you have a linebacker at quarterback basically and have him score 2 rushing touchdowns? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, no, man, I don't know. I hope it's, and this is all the thing we've talked about. I'm not going to say the thing that everyone's saying, but this is an offense for KJ Jefferson, and that's why they went and got him.
What's the thing everyone's saying? Does he remind you of a particular quarterback
no, he
from
doesn't
Gus Malzahn's
actually.
past?
Nope,
okay,
he doesn't.
Really? Because to me, he's a dead ringer for
Bo
Nick
Nix.
Marshall.
KJ Jefferson's Bo Nix, I think. So yeah, I took the over.
Jarrett Stidham.
You immediately made me feel bad. Like I think you're probably right.
Well, either way, but again, we're both of our picks were based on positive things, which I feel we should point out after our very doom and gloom monologue to this podcast. Is that the first one I may have taken the under, but I took it for a good reason, and Bailey took the over, which we'd all love a quarterback with 30+ touchdowns.
I think we looked that up too. I meant to look it up before this, but it's been how many years since they've had a 30? I guess it would have been Gabriel, right?
Gabriel in 2020. Yeah.
Well,
it's been a minute.
This year changes. Yeah,
almost half a decade.
Number 2, we went with RJ Harvey rushing yards. We set it at 999.5.
Yeah, we said it at 99. What are you taking?
Basically, 99 in the first half against New Hampshire. I keep forgetting which one, New Hampshire or Sam Houston's first, and I don't know why.
New Hampshire's first, Sam Houston's second.
Yes. 999.5. Basically, do you think he's going to rush for 1,000 yards again or no?
To be clear, if any of you are not super in the know and are like, how dare they suggest that wouldn't happen? They did bring in another running back who also rushed for 1,400 yards last year. So it's not like he's going to necessarily be getting the same number of carries he got last year. So just that's the reason we're talking about this.
Right, but I still took the over. I don't know that he's going to get 1,400 again. Like I think that would be pretty crazy if he got, unless Penny Boone comes in and he just doesn't get any. Like he's just not what he was last year,
which is always possible.
Yeah, but I think 1,100, 1,200, even with a smaller number of carries, with the efficiency that RJ always runs with, like I think he averaged 6.3 yards per carry last year.
Yes.
Even if that dips a little bit and he's around like 5.8 or 6 yards a carry and he still gets around 200 carries, like I think he'll get there still pretty easily. Like I just think he's going to be, there will be games I think where he just goes crazy, and I think that'll be great.
So the math I did was that I just figured, let's say he has 75% of the carries he had last season. That feels like a maybe fair estimate, given that you have to make room for Penny. And also I assume Johnny will still get some carries. Yeah. Maybe Miles Montgomery. Like I figured 75% seems fair. If you take 75% and if he averages 6.3, again, that's still well over 1,000 yards. It's like 1,100 yards. And also, I'm sure he will be improved this season. RJ Harvey's gotten better every year. I don't think we're just getting 2023 version again. I bet he's going to be even better. And yeah, the O-line is still a little more of a question mark, so maybe it's a little unrealistic to expect him to average over 6 yards a carry again. But I don't know. I just have, with how dynamic he is, I just have a really, really hard time talking myself into him not having 1,000 yards, no matter how useful Penny is or how much they use him. I also feel like Penny might be their like short yardage guy because he is more of like a larger, like more physical running back. So I don't know. I'm still feeling good about it. Yeah,
I think the math that I did, didn't even really line up with how I felt, because I still feel like he's going to get to like 1,100 or 1,200, but he had 226 carries last year. I think say he has 190 this year, and even if that dips down, his average yards per carry dips down from 6.3 to like 5.8, that's still 1,100 yards.
Yeah,
it's like I think he's going to be in that range, and yeah, I'm curious to like know or to see what Penny's workload will be like and what his production will look like. Like, I wonder what his stat line will be at the end of the year. Like, I'm almost more intrigued by that.
I'm super intrigued by him because he is the big wild card of the season, because he was really freaking good in the MAC. Yeah. Like when Louisville got him initially in the portal, it was like one of those pickups where people were talking about, oh, like I'm really liking them for the ACC title now that they've added this another key piece. And then he comes here, and since like look at it this way, if we didn't have RJ Harvey, if he had gone to the draft, we'd be talking about Penny right now, like, wow, they replaced him. He's going to have this huge season. Yeah. Can he be the best running back in the Big 12? But since UCF has RJ Harvey, we're like, yeah, I wonder what he'll do. Maybe he'll put up some yards. Like, I you never know. There have been lots of portal busts, so I'm not saying that it's a done deal. But if he does live up to the hype, like, good Lord, does UCF have to throw the ball? Maybe they just don't, you know?
Yeah. We've mentioned this too, is like, I think the hit rate's been pretty good with guys moving up the level.
Guys who are stars, not just anyone moving up, but guys who are stars in the G5 who move up those tend to hit. Not always, but that's one of the higher hit rates of the, group, if you're going to group people who go in the portal.
Yeah. So I started with two straight overs.
Can I say
Our
something else
third,
quickly on that?
yes.
Is there a reality where they both hit 1,000 yards? Am I insane?
Um, I don't know. I really don't know.
If there
I
was ever an
guess
offense that would allow
yeah.
for that, it does feel like it would be a Gus Malzahn offense.
Now I mean I obviously this can sound obvious. I want that to happen because it would
Me
be good
too.
for the offense and it'd be good for
Yep.
UCF, but it would just be a cool thing. Like it would just be like
2,000
wow,
yard
they had
rushers.
two 1,000 yard rushers.
Yeah.
Um
7-5 UCF has their 2,000 yard rusher.
oh it'd be yeah. Our third one, Big 12 wins. Set the line at 6.5.
Go ahead.
I went first last time.
Oh, fine. I just didn't want to have to say it first. I took the under.
So did I.
Which obviously means I would not have them in the Big 12 title game, which I guess that's where I'm at. Is I think my official stance and prediction on the season is I believe that they are capable of making the Big 12 title game, but I'm expecting them to fall somewhat short. I don't think
Yeah.
they're going to be like bottom of the conference, but like I don't know. I'm just feeling 6-3 as their conference.
I said the same thing.
That's just
I
kind
wrote
of where
down
I'm at.
6-3. Because I mean, if you look at the schedule, TCU, Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona, West Virginia, and Utah, they're all losable.
They're all losable, and
Like,
they
those
won't
are all
lose all
losable
of them,
games.
but they
Yeah.
will lose some of them. And I just I don't know, like
Even the trip to Arizona State could be tricky because of the trip. It's a trip to Arizona State.
so I put 3 conference games I feel great about, and it was Cincinnati, BYU, and Arizona State. And even after I wrote that down, I was like, I don't know about Arizona State. That's a long trip, kind of late in the season, and I don't know. I just and that could be a situation where because that's before West Virginia, right?
Yes.
Depending on how the season's playing out, they might be looking like West Virginia might be a big game that they're like looking ahead to. I don't know. That one has
What
bad
might
energy
help?
to me.
I don't know if this really does help or not, but I'm gonna craft this narrative now.
Go
Is
ahead.
they play at Arizona State and then they have a bye week and then they have West Virginia.
Oh, okay. I never mind. I'll take that
So
narrative away then. Yeah. But Arizona
would
State's also in that building phase right now where it's going to be year 2 of their like new hot young coach who's like recruiting really well. And like they're the type of team that's going to have a bad record, but will steal one here and there because they're getting there. And I just don't want to be UCF one of the ones they steal. So I think there's really 2 Big 12 games I feel perfectly good about, and that's it.
I think ideally you would wish that UCF got Arizona State like earlier in the season because they'd still be in that building like early on, and by November they might be starting to click a little bit.
You never know though. Like 2016 UCF, they were more impressive early in the season, and then they were playing everyone who was super young and wasn't used to that grind, and they were running out of gas by the end of the season. You just never know how it's going to go. But the point being, overall, like I'm not saying they can't go 8-1 or 7-2. They could. It's just very hard for me to predict that right now.
Yeah,
it's such a like just between like you said, like just Utah, West Virginia, Iowa State. No one's talking about the TCU or Iowa State games, and both of those are straight up losable games. Maybe like most likely losses. It's a tough schedule, man.
And yeah, I think I was going to say that I thought about that earlier. Is I think no one is really. I don't think UC, and I might be wrong. Correct me if you think I'm wrong.
Okay,
but I don't think the UCF fan base as a whole or in general like thinks of Iowa State as like this really good team, and how like I don't know if everybody really realizes how difficult that game's going to be, especially going on the road there.
Iowa State is expected to probably have the best defense in the conference this year. It's also the largest stadium in the Big 12. It's a tough place to play. I think that is just kind of an overlook for a lot of fans because Iowa State's just not the brand that some other teams are on the schedule. They're not Utah. They're not Colorado, which I can't believe I'm saying. But that, like, I think I'd pencil that in as a loss now. Like, that's one that I just don't think UCF is going to win.
Yeah, and I feel like, and I might be wrong, but I feel like most people look at that and like, oh yeah, it's Iowa State. Like UCF's bigger than Iowa State, but like
there actually might not be a conference game I feel worse about than that one, to be totally honest. It's like that and the West Virginia road trip.
West Virginia,
that I'm just like, yikes, you know.
West Virginia, we talked about this too. West Virginia is in that spot that Texas Tech was in last year, where it's like
and maybe it was in the year before.
Yeah, that's just that's the worst spot of the schedule every year, I guess.
Wasn't it even SMU the year before that they lost badly on the road?
I think you're right. No. Because they played SMU on the road and then they came home and played UConn. Then they played USF at home.
We're not counting UConn game. We're not counting. That's not a conference game.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way. Do you think everyone's clicked out of this podcast? They're all hyped for the season. We're like, here's how it's gonna suck.
Probably.
Again, they could do it. I'm just gonna keep saying that after every single one of these picks. They could do it. I'm just not sure if they will.
I was laughing to myself as you were talking earlier because say they go 6-3 in the conference. Like 6-3 in the second year in the Big 12 is not bad, but then so much of the season it does ride on the Florida game because they win the first 2 games. So that's 8-3 right there, and you're feeling if they lose that Florida game, they're 8-4 with a loss to Florida. You're feeling different than 9-3, they don't make the Big 12 title game, but they beat Florida.
I think my official season prediction. Remember this, everybody. This is it. I'm only saying this once because when we actually do our prediction podcast, I'll have new things to say and we'll pretend this never happened.
Do we have a prediction podcast?
Just our preview, like our season preview podcast.
Okay.
I don't know why I refer to it as the prediction podcast. We don't usually sit down and say but either way, this is my crystal ball. Here's how the season will play out for UCF. UCF is going to start very strong, maybe even 4-0, 5-0. I think they will beat Florida. They will have all this hype. They'll drop a conference game somewhere, maybe Iowa State, but they will come into that last stretch of the schedule with only one conference loss, with the Florida win, ranked in position to go to the Big 12 title game in the playoff, and they will drop both West Virginia and Utah.
Can't believe you just stole that take from me. You didn't steal it because I didn't say it yet. But I am dead serious when I tell you I have those words written in my notebook to talk about with one of these later on.
I'm sorry I stole it. I
think
apologize.
they could be, and I didn't really put the Florida thing in there. I don't know what's going on with that, but I think they'll be 8-2 going into those final two games, and they'll lose to both West
Everything
Virginia
is
and
there in
Utah.
front of you. Like that's it.
Yeah.
You just win those two, and you go to the Big 12 title game.
I can't
have a shot at going to the playoff, and I think they drop both those games.
We did not talk about that.
Well, I swear we did not.
Yeah,
no.
This was a completely independent conclusion that we both arrived at.
But does that not feel like the most UCF and most Gus Malzahn's UCF thing to have happen? Like they're right there, and all the hype is there, and those are two really tough games, and they just can't win either of them. Like that just feels so on brand to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's either that or like they really need to win the West Virginia game and they lose it, so they go to 8-3, and then like it's really like very, very like close to being impossible. Like they need to win, they need to beat Utah and like need all this other stuff to happen.
Yeah,
and then they'll find a way to beat Utah, but the other stuff won't happen. Like
that,
the game they really need to win, they'll lose. But
this is one thing that I gotta say that's really the video game has opened my eyes to it, is because you can do like a dynasty mode where you have conferences and stuff. Is I don't think I'd processed how insane all the mega conferences are. Like it's just been weird to realize how like this year there are going to be across college football, because all the Power 4 conferences are huge now. There are going to be, I don't know which conference it is yet, might be the Big 12, might not. There will be dramatically controversial tiebreakers, because you're going to end up in situations where like 6 teams have the same conference record, and you're going to have to come up with all these weird hoops to jump through to figure out. Like in the Big 12, like UCF doesn't play most of the teams that are supposed to maybe play the Big, or maybe win the Big 12. They miss Oklahoma State. They miss Kansas. They miss Kansas State. Like what happens when UCF has the same conference record and is tied for second with a team they didn't play? Like it's just, or it didn't even come close to playing. Like don't even have a lot of common opponents. That's possible.
It's not the same thing because they did play them, but it reminds me. Remember how like there was a scenario with the AAC title game in 2022 where it was like Cincinnati, Tulane, and UCF were all like there was just it was something that had to happen. I think it was if UCF had lost to USF.
It was maybe. So it was a weird situation where Cincinnati, Tulane, and UCF had all played each other, but not all played each other, if that had made sense. Like Cincinnati had played Tulane, who had played Cincinnati, who had played UCF. Like I forget what they all played. Now they did all play each other.
Because Cincinnati Tulane played the last week of the season, right?
Yes. And there was some weird tiebreaker situation where even though UCF had beaten both of them, there was still a chance they would be the one left out. Right. I think Houston was involved in this in some weird way.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But all that is to be said, that was how confusing things got when they removed divisions in an 11-team conference. Throw in 5 more teams on top of that, and that's the Big 12. There's gonna and then the Big 10's at like 18. Like there will be team. Like I don't think we've talked enough about that, and I almost wonder if that's what I think the death. Let's go back to everyone's favorite topic. That's what I think the death of the conference title games is really going to be, is because once it becomes sort of nonsensical how you're picking who makes those games, and it's just kind of like weird tiebreakers no one understands, it's going to get to the point where conferences just want to say they were first in the conference, they won the league. Like that's it, you know?
Yeah, no, it's going to be wild. And then we talked off the podcast. I think we texted about this like last week about just the November in college football now, like of all of the games that are going to have playoff implications. It's going to be an adjustment, but it's going to be a fun adjustment. Like that's going to be crazy, where like week in and week out you've got almost like playoff eliminators going on. And
the Big 12 in particular in November is going to be nuts, because every November game is going to impact somebody.
It might kill me. It won't be.
It really might. It's possible.
All right, so we're on to number 5, which is road wins. The line at 3.5. It's my turn to go first, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said under. Also, again.
Yeah, I took the under, man. I took the under.
This is when I started, because I looked at the KJ one and I was like, okay, I took the over. RJ took the over. Once we started getting into the wins, I was like, oh, maybe I'm like way more. And I think it might be trying to protect myself. Like I don't want to have 10-2 expectations because I'm just going to end up disappointed. If I feel like they're not going to do all these things and they do them, I'll be able to enjoy it. But
Here's
I don't
my
know.
thing.
That's crazy. The
Here's my
road
thing.
games are. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. That's fine.
Okay, so the road games
Here's
are
my thing.
TCU.
Sorry, go ahead.
TCU, Florida, Iowa State, Arizona State, and West Virginia. Again, all of those are losable
Every
games.
single one is losable. Arizona State's the easiest one, and it's a different region of the planet than where UCF lives.
I think 3-2 in those games is realistic and probably the most probable if we're looking at it right now. 4-1 would be great, but I think 3-2 is more realistic, which is why I took the under.
So that's what did it for me, because we were texting when we were setting these earlier, and you mentioned how 4-1 seems crazy to me, and you said that, and I was like, oh, they're not going 4-1 in those games. It was so like I just hearing it like that, I realized that no, that is not happening. At the same time, we also have to remember UCF is 7-10 on the road in the Gus era. They have not played well on the road in any of the years he's been the head coach. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if it's just circumstance, but you throw in the toughest. Is this the toughest road slate UCF has ever played as a program?
I think so.
Yeah. It's tougher than, well, they had more road games last year, but against some more beatable teams. So I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out, obviously. Because in hindsight, you can say, I mean, one of the tough road games was Texas Tech, who was, I think, were they a 6-win team too, or a 7-win team?
No, I'm gonna actually say it was last year. Now that I'm looking at it,
I think so. I can't. I mean, I've kind of erased last year's. I moved on.
Last year was at Boise State, at Kansas State, at Kansas, at Oklahoma, at Cincinnati, and at Texas Tech. That's worse. That's harder.
The Cincinnati, is it though?
Yeah, because the Boise State road trip is crazy for a non-conference.
The road trip is crazy, but considering the non-conference, like I guess the one that lines up with that this year is at Florida, and I'd say the at Florida game is way harder. I know the travel's not nearly as bad, but
Kansas State and Kansas were both Big 12 title contenders. So was Oklahoma. Yeah. Like Texas Tech was like the next closest thing to like an easy opponent, and they still like went to a bowl and everything.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's still very tough. Like even if last year's might have been tougher, this year's is 5 very tough road games, and the easiest one being all the way in Arizona. So
and they went 2-4 last year on the road. So
yeah. And
we're predicting a huge improvement from 2-4 to 3-2.
I skipped one. I think I might have skipped one.
You did skip one. That's why I got very confused when you asked me that.
Man. All right. Well, I skipped one. We'll go back to it now. And that one is double-digit wins, like wins by double digits. Set the line at 4.5.
Did you think just reversing the order you said that in would make it more explainable?
Yeah, it sounded better, like, because double-digit wins, like, I don't know.
Oh, you're right. I heard it the way that you probably heard it. You're right. Okay, wins by double digits. That's spot on. I'm sorry for calling you out. Okay. That's correct.
Set it at 4.5. This is actually when I was supposed to go first, so I'll do it again.
Okay,
I'll go first. I said under. This is actually where I said no. Actually, no. They can win some games, and it's just a tough schedule. I think it really was the Big 12 wins and the road wins where I kind of felt like, oh, maybe I'm expecting less than I thought I was. But I think they won 4 games by double digits last year.
Yeah.
I think they'll do 4 again. Like the 2 that are gimmies obviously are New Hampshire and Sam Houston. But like from there, it's like kind of just throwing at a dartboard, 2 other ones that they're going to probably get. Like, I don't know if they're going to pick up 3 more. Did you take the over? Or the
I took the over. I'm a ray of sunshine. I'm known for that. So I did take the over on this one. And you actually kind of made some of my point for me. So they have the 2 fake games to start the season. So those are both, I got to stop saying that. So those are both, obviously they'll win those by double digits. You just need 3 the rest of the year. And the thing about double digit win is that you don't have to have a dominant performance to win a game by double digits. It could be a situation where it's back and forth and the other team's doing dumb stuff late to try to, in desperation, and they throw a pick or something. Like 10 points is a double digit win. So the fact that they had 4 last year and were like a low to bad Big 12 team, and this year they're, I think at worst, going to be a mid-level Big 12 team, probably upper tier, hopefully. Mm-hmm. I think they'll do it. I think it'll happen. Even against tough game. Like, it'll be a tough game where they were very close to losing and they just ended up winning by like 11 or something because of the way the final score worked out.
I think my dumb reason that I took the under was I was like looking at who were the easier-ish opponents on the schedule. And I looked at last year, who was like an easier opponent. And I was like, they won the Cincinnati game by 2 points.
Yeah, but they were also... The UCF was also not very good at football last year. So that was part of it. So, and they would have had another one against Baylor if you would stop the game literally at any point other than the end of it. So that's important to consider as well.
Yeah. It was weird when I was going through this. I was like, I don't think it's going to happen, but I was like, the last time they played Florida, they beat them by double digits. Like, I know this one's going to be at Florida, but how great would that be?
I could give a perfect example of why I took the over, though, is the Kansas State game last year. Like, UCF lost by what 13. They lost by 13 to Kansas State. That was a close game to the very end. It was just the way it worked out.
44-31, I think.
I love that you know that off the top of your head. That's phenomenal. But yeah, so it's or like Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl. That was another close game that they. So I feel like I'm feeling good about that one. They'll get it done.
Yeah, I don't know. I just my problem with that is like I couldn't look at the schedule and say, yeah, it's going to be these, and these. So I took the under.
Well, that's what sucks about the Big 12 is you actually can't look at the schedule and know anything. You just have to look at it and say, yeah, that one of several billion things could happen. I miss the AAC for that alone. Just looking at the schedule in the offseason and there being literally up to maybe 6 games that we just didn't have to talk about. And UCF would still then go lose one of those a season. Like they lost to Tulsa in 2019 or Navy in 2022, but it was still, I don't know. It was a different kind of analysis.
It'll be, and I think it depends on kind of how the early parts of the season play out and how some of these teams are. Like maybe we do see Cincinnati and they're just not good again, and like okay, that's going to be probably an easier one. Like that's going to be a win. But I don't think like after New Hampshire and Sam Houston, I think we're going to go into every week being like they could lose this weekend. Like
unless some team is just having an awful year,
right?
Like Cincinnati's still really bad or something. But yeah, I think
like
pretty much every
terrible,
game.
But
BYU, I think pretty much every game though is going to be terrifying.
Yeah, that's cool. The next one is a one that, backed by popular demand, we talked about it last year. Kickers to attempt the field goal, over under 1.5.
This is our politely worded, will Colton Boomer's UCF career go the way of Daniel Obarski in the 2024 season?
This one is, since I went first in the last two, this is you going first.
I know that I'm a noted Colton Boomer doubter. I think I was one of the first on the he's not that good bandwagon, at which I was proven very wrong, then very right through the swings of last season. I'm taking the under. I think that Colton Boomer will hold on to the job throughout the season. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wow, Christian, you have that faith in Colton Boomer. That's great. Not so much. I more have my faith in Gus Malzahn showing more loyalty to a player than he should, and him not taking him out, even if it gets to the point where it's clear that he's not working out his kicker. So that's my official stance.
We need a third co-host because we have this. We think the same, so it's
no.
It's funny because we do and we don't. But I'm just thinking it was funny because last year I believe you took the over because you were doubting Colton Boomer. I took the under. You took the under this year. I took the over this year, and I did have the same line of thinking where I think Gus is very stubborn. I don't want to downplay how stubborn Gus is and how loyal he is to his players, but if they're competing the way they expect to be, and if they're as good as they think they're going to be, he can't just keep running out a bad kicking game. If it's bad, like I don't know if it's going to be bad, but if Colton Boomer's struggling, like I don't know. Maybe I'm still underestimating how stubborn he is, but we're not talking enough. I don't think about. He was 13 for 21 last year.
Was that
61.9%?
Man,
61.9, and it was. I know there was more so like it was kind of a problem more later in the season, so which is maybe why. I don't know. You think recency bias, you think about it more, but
since there's some in there ended, there have been rumblings that there was an injury involved. I don't know if that's true, but there has been like some talk on like social media that was the case, which could have played a role in things. But
also crazy though because you did have another kicker, and if it's at that point, it's not like being loyal to your player; it's just being dumb because if your guy's hurt to the point where he's not able to do the job, you've got another kicker on the roster.
This is where I do the disclaimer where we don't have all the behind the scenes information.
No, we don't
actually know. But I think the other reason for my take too is that I have a hard time seeing Colton Boomer being catastrophically bad. Like he has so much power on his kicks that I just feel like if you give him like a straight shot, he'll make it. So I feel like he'll have like, it'll just be finesse kicks or kicks at an angle, which won't work. Guess, so he'll hit enough.
What do you define as catastrophically bad?
Like they're it's the third quarter against TCU on the road and UCF's trailing like I don't know or it's a tie game 17-17 and they can't get in the end zone so they line up for like a 24-yarder and at like one of the hashes and you just can't hit it. Like that's catastrophic to me.
He did miss 2 extra points last year too.
He did, and he made a field goal against Baylor that he made in off of one of uprights that I think was like a 21-yarder or something. So like that maybe that's possible, but the
reason I asked you to qualify is because 61% or almost 62% of your field goals, like that's borderline catastrophic. If you're,
but to me, it's like if it's just like he's not hitting ones from range very well, like anything over 40 is just like he's like hitting half of them. Like that's not catastrophic to me. It's just they can't rely on their
most college kickers, honestly.
Yeah,
most of them are struggling from 40 plus. I think
it's if it's the chip shots he can't hit. That's when it's like, whoa, this is a problem. Which I'm not really expecting, but you never know.
If there was an injury or even if he just kind of gets his head right, because with kickers, so much of it's mental. So it's like if he goes into the season, he hits his first 8 field goals, like, I mean, I'll very quickly look dumb for saying, I think at some point Grant Reddick's gonna get to attempt a field goal.
The other thing that we should
But
note about Grant Reddick is that he was like the highest rated kicker commit in the country when he committed to UCF. We don't actually know a whole lot about how he's been in practice. So we're assuming he's been good because he came in so highly rated. Maybe he's terrible. Who knows?
yeah, but why is he still here?
Actually, yeah, it's a good point. He probably
I
would
don't
still
know.
be
It's
here.
just
Yeah.
you carrying two kickers. I would imagine the second one like has to be somebody. It was a weird scenario to begin with because they got Colton Boomer in, and then like shortly after because he was a freshman, and then they got a commit from like a 5-star rated kicker.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if they're both on scholarship. I think they may have been at some point, and there are not a whole lot of teams in college football carrying 2 scholarship kickers. That's crazy usually.
here's something that I found that means nothing, but I was interested in it is on the spring roster, Grant Reddick was listed as a kicker / punter, and Colton Boomer was listed as place kicker. That doesn't mean anything, but it was weird.
Gus Malzahn runs UCF like the Pentagon. There's no way he would let something like that leak through a depth chart release.
But it was weird because I looked, I sorted by position and I went down to kicker just because I was like, let me make sure that Grant Reddick's still around and still on the roster. And I got down to kicker and I only saw Grant Reddick and I was like, where's Colton Boomer? He was definitely here in the spring.
Grant Reddick is coming for
and
Mitch McCarthy's job or Colton Boomer's job. He doesn't care which one he gets, but he's coming for one of their jobs this season.
Yeah, I mean, all the best to him. I don't know. I think I just went with this way because like if they're really good and the kicking game is really bad, Gus he can't be that stubborn. Like that's he can be.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying that this is the same guy who Mikey Keene came in and the offense immediately got better and they won 2 key games. And then he gave a whole speech about how you don't lose your starting spot due to an injury, even though we've watched that happen to virtually every college football team in America and put JRP back out. So what can you do?
Yeah. Which worked for a week.
It did. They beat Tulane. They went on the road and beat a top 25 team. I'm not complaining. I was like, great, this worked out wonderfully. And then the rest of the season happened.
On to the next one. Points per game, the line at 34.5. I took the over. I don't really if you looked at all of my choices together, I don't know if they really are all very cohesive, but I did it anyway. I took the over. They averaged 31.3 last year with a mixture of JRP and Timmy at quarterback because of the injuries and all that. I don't know. I think KJ, Penny Boone, a better Randy Pittman, or more experienced Randy Pittman, I would assume better. RJ and Kobe obviously in the mix. Like I think they'll be a good few points better than they were last year, and that would get them above the mark.
Do you know UCF scored exactly 407 points last year?
No, I didn't.
I like
that. Seems like a thing that UCF would have like made a graphic for.
I don't think at how the way last season was going towards the end, like after that bowl game, they were going to be like, sure, Georgia Tech just blew us out, but guess how many points we scored season total? It's kind of funny because the offense was inconsistent last year, but it wasn't bad. Like the offense was honestly pretty good. And
it was the defense was the problem.
The defense was a large problem. And I don't know. It's some of the names you just said. I just think a team, regardless of what happens with the O-line, which I think we mostly feel good about. There's only 1 or 2 spots we're not totally sure what's going to happen there. You give me KJ Jefferson and RJ Harvey and Penny Boone and Kobe Hudson and Xavier Townsend and Randy Pittman and even some of the new guys they brought, like Jacoby Jones and Javarius Johnson. Is that his last name? I just you can't talk me into that group of players not putting up
Richardson.
Burdell Richardson. You can't talk me into that group of players not putting up 35 points a game. You just can't talk me into that. I don't know. Maybe I'm horribly wrong, but I really, and also the Big 12 has a lot of good defenses. It's not this high flying, everyone's putting up a gazillion points like it was 10 years ago, but so maybe I'm stupid, but I don't know. I have such a hard time in my head imagining that group of players going out and consistently putting up like 28 points week in and week out. I just don't see
and I don't even know if this would be the case because they're supposed to have such a strong running game with RJ, Penny, KJ. But if for whatever reason, Xavier Townsend, Jacoby Jones, Javarius Johnson, Burdell Richardson, none of them quite fill in, I guess, even really what Kobe did last year, because Kobe's stepping into like the Javon role as far as production. If they kind of are like all pretty good, but not like they don't have 2 like really, really good receivers, I don't know if they need it, but I guess that could hold them back, I guess, as an offense. But I think they have enough guys where one of them is going to stick at least. So.
But that's exactly what I was going to say. Is
and Pittman, like I think
guys, and Randy Pittman.
Randy Pittman's stock is going up.
Quasi wide receiver, if we're being serious. But I mean, the thing about, you just listed 3 names. Only one of them needs to hit. It's not like it'd be one thing if they brought in 1 wide receiver transfer and we're like, hope this works out. But the fact that they have a freshman who, like out of spring camp, everyone was like hyping up. And the fact that you have this guy who put up a lot of yards at Auburn, the fact that you have Jacoby Jones, who's really good in the MAC, like you just need one of them to hit. to suddenly have 3 good wide receivers at your disposal. So
Yeah.
the only way this offense is bad or just way worse than we're anticipating is if the O-line really is catastrophic. Like they just can't find guys for their areas of need. And yeah, I wish they would have done more in the portal, but also I just freaking trust Herb Hand at this point. I just think he'll figure it out. It might not be the best O-line ever. There might be a weakness on it, but I don't think it's going to be something that's going to literally tank the whole offense.
Yeah, and again, I want to reiterate, like I also took the over here. I was just kind of playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, why do you hate
Why is
UCF's
that a
offense,
thing?
Bailey?
Why does the devil need an advocate? Why is that the saying?
I don't know. And honestly, I use it a lot, like in my day-to-day life. I love saying
Yeah,
that, like at my job and stuff. I'm always like
just to play
devil's
the devil's
advocate here.
advocate.
Which at least for me,
For the
devil's
devil.
advocate is really, I know people use it as like, because devil's advocate, if you didn't know, the definition is basically, well, I don't believe this, but let me just play this role to
Yeah,
promote conversation. I just use it when I believe something different from the rest of the group, and I want to say it, but I want to say it in a way that I won't face judgment.
which is a lot. Yeah, no, I took the over also. The next one, points per game allowed. So flipping over to the defense. The line set at 22.5, which if they give up 22.5 points last year, they would have been a top 40 defense. 34.5 would have made them a top 20 offense. I meant to say that. I think Florida State was number 20 last year at 34.5 points per game. 40th in defense was Northwestern at 22.5. I took the over.
I'm smashing the over with a
Yeah.
hammer,
22.5 is
with a
not a lot of
mallet.
points.
That's
Like
not a lot of points.
surprisingly, when we were doing this and setting the lines, 25 they gave up 25.77 points per game last year, but that factors in giving up 6 against Kent State, 14 against Villanova, I think 16 at Boise State.
They gave up 29.8 in Big
Yeah,
12 play.
like 30 points per game in Big 12 play. So, and then they
Still
played
nowhere
Florida this
near what they
year,
gave
and
up in 2020, which is kind of funny to think about. Like not even in the ballpark of what they gave up in
that
2020.
was so I've watched a lot of bad football because the Bucks were very bad for most of my childhood. I think and then it's obviously different because it's college and the NFL. I think the 2020 UCF defense is the worst defense I've ever watched play football in my life.
For those of you who are listeners, which I feel like it's probably some of you who weren't around yet for 2020, you should go watch, like find some not
Please,
highlights, but like
don't save
full
yourself.
game footage online, because I like, if you ever want to complain about UCF's defense, that was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just, it
Here,
was
I'll describe it. I got to a point in the game in the season where I would not watch them play defense. I'd walk out of the room until they got the ball back, and then I'd come back in and watch them play offense. I think I only did that once. That was a Tulane game, but
I think the best way I can describe it is that 4 defensive starters were kicked off the team midway through the season due to like a police incident. That's what it was, right?
yeah, I don't know what
And
happened.
the defense got mildly better. Like that's how bad that defense was. It wasn't just like, oh, they're giving up, like they can't, the other team's controlling possession. It was like every single time the other team had the ball was an opportunity for them to make a giant touchdown play down the field in whatever way they wanted, like 80-yard run, chucking it deep, whatever you want. It's fine. Basically, every single time the other team had the ball, every single UCF defensive player looked at each other and said, do we know what's happening right now? And all looked at each other confused as the other team ran all over them or threw all over them or whatever. It was horrible.
Very bad.
All that being said, it was all in the past. None of those players are still here. I don't think. It was a long time ago. And
yeah, I think you're right.
We were talking a little bit about this via text earlier, but the defense is the unit, it's half the team that I've been souring on as we've gotten closer to the season, because I feel like I just kind of said, they brought in a lot of players, so I'll relax. They might be better. They definitely can't be worse, but we just still don't know anything. Like for all the weapons that the offense has added or cultivated or whatever, the defense is still mostly unknowns. We just don't know what to expect from basically any of these guys. So it could be better. It could be a lot
mostly
better.
know
We
like
just
the
don't
front,
know.
the front 4. I'd say we know mostly. Like it's more so the linebackers and
It's more so the rest of the
secondary.
defense.
Yeah,
Other
we do
than
know
some
we
of
know
we know
have,
some of the D linemen. That's what we're
Yeah.
at. Like, do we
Yeah.
even know the edge rushers really? Like, we know one of them. Like,
Malachi Lawrence, and then
yeah.
they haven't. I got to believe they have enough in the rest of the guys that
Dalen Dotson, Nigel Lee Kelly, Caven Cullen, Isaiah
Yeah.
Nixon, the younger guys like that. Who
yeah,
knows though?
I think there's enough.
They're all names that sound really good. We just don't know if any of them can play well. So it's tough. But like I said, the defense could be a huge surprise. Like if time traveling, like time machine me came here from the end of the season and was like, past Christian, great news. The defense gave up like 18 points a game. They were fantastic, whatever. I could believe that. I actually could, because they brought in a lot of players, a lot of potential. If time travel me showed up and said it was just as bad as last year, I could believe that too, because they hired Ted Roof. So I just don't know what to expect.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I even think I think they are going to have a better defense than they did last year, but they could have a better defense and still give up more than 22.5 points per game. Like that seems like
It's a
a very
low
low
bar.
number for being
Yeah.
40th in the nation. I guess there are a lot of really good defenses out there, but
we could be talking about how good the defense and how improved they were this year, and they allowed more points than that. Because it could also be like one game, right? Like if they get in some crazy shootout with
yeah.
like Arizona in the space game and they win like 56-45 or something, it just kills their average. Like that's a tough
And I
one to
think,
hit.
yeah, I mean, it could be because the last year, if it was 25.77 total, I know it was 20 about 30 for Big 12 play, but if it was around 25, 26 last year, swap out this year, swap out the Florida game, or swap in the Florida game for the Boise State game, since Boise State only scored 16. Like, I think Florida's going to score more than 16 points. So that's already going to, make the average different. And then, I don't know what's going to happen in conference play. Maybe they'll be better. Maybe they'll be worse. Maybe they'll be the same. But I think they could have a decent seed. Like, I don't think not all the best teams have a defense in the top 20, top 30, top 40. Like, I don't know. I said that without even checking, but
UCF won 25 games in a row with an okay defense.
right. Wow. I'm a power conference guy now. Because I was thinking,
are you just like it's all these like loser G5 teams clogging up the top of the
ranking? But when I said that, I was thinking like I don't know how many power teams like have a defense that is like below 50 and is like still good. Like I don't know what that's like. I wasn't thinking about 2017, 2018 when defense wasn't very good, but
they weren't bad. They were just winning. Fine. They didn't lose the team games,
Yeah.
They tried to at a couple points, but they didn't lose.
They did, but the offense wouldn't let them because the offense was just that good. And I don't think even as much as I think UCF's offense is going to be good this year, it's just I feel like I'm just in my head just chasing the feeling of those offenses in 2017 and 2018.
Okay, well, 2017 UCF averaged 47 points a game, so I don't think that we're going to see that this season. I don't think you see that in the Power 5 period, but yeah, those were very, very fun years.
Yeah. Next, weeks in the top 25. The line's at 2.5. I don't know. I lost track of who's going first. Should I go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I took the over.
So did I. I don't really know why.
2.5. I can see. I'm not saying they're gonna have a dream season. I'm just saying there's opportunities on this schedule to get into the top 25. It's a lot easier to get in when you're a power conference team. You don't have to have a perfect record. Like UCF could be like, I don't know, 3-2. What game would they be playing after 3-2?
Cincinnati.
Okay, that's a bad example. UCF could be like, I don't know, 4-2, go in the Iowa State game and say Iowa State's like started off undefeated and they're like ranked like 11. And UCF wins. Voters just go, oh dang, they're 5-2 now and they beat a ranked team and put them in. Like it's just a lot easier to get in this power conference team. And I think the path is early in the season, right? Like if they start 4-0 and they go into the Florida game 4-0, which is hard but possible, and they win the Florida game, whether Florida's bad or not, they'll go up in the rankings. And you just have to hold they'll be
my question, like going into this, is like if they start 4-0, they beat TCU, they beat Colorado, and they're 4-0 going into the Florida game. Do you think they're ranked going into the Florida game at 4-0?
Honestly, I would. If you'd asked me 2 years ago if those exact teams, I'd say no. But given the spotlight that's on Colorado every time they play now, if UCF goes in that game 3-0 and beats Colorado or beats them easily, then there might be enough eyeballs on that people are aware of it and throw them in. I still don't know if I'd predict it just because UCF's not coming off the type of hype to get there. I think it would take the Florida game, but it's just when you're in the Big 12, like UCF's going to be playing. Who are teams on the schedule that could realistically be ranked when UCF plays them? Colorado. I'm going to throw in Florida. I know they're supposed to be really bad. Yeah. You never know. Colorado, Florida, Iowa State, Arizona, West Virginia, and Utah. That's a lot of games against ranked opponents. And if you're like have a solid record in the power conference in a power conference and you beat a ranked team, there's a chance you'll get thrown in. So I don't know if they'll consecutively stack weeks, but I can see 3 separate weeks during the season they're in the top 25.
Yeah, and you have to wonder like, because it's easier to get in when you're in the Big 12, like winning some big games or like being you said 4-2, 5-2. Looking last year, like if they didn't lose 5 games in a row, I wonder if there would have been a point where they might have snuck in. Like if that, say, I don't know what the record would have been. What was the record after Oklahoma State? Would have been 4-5? 4-5.
Yeah, they were 4-5 after that game.
Say, I mean,
no, 5-5, 5-5, because they had 2 games left, right? Texas Tech and Houston.
Yes.
Yeah. So they were 5-5.
Okay, so they're 5-5. Say rewriting history, whatever. They don't lose the Baylor game, and they don't lose, I don't know, Kansas. And that win over Oklahoma State. This is a bad example, isn't it?
It's hard to use last season.
That makes them like 7-3. Like I think they beat number 15 Oklahoma State 45-3. And then they're 7-3 after that. I think they get ranked.
Yeah, I agree. So when you do something highlight worthy, like beat up on a top 25 team, you just have to have the record to justify a ranking, and you'll probably get it. I mean, literally, we're talking about in 2022, they were ranked for 5 weeks. And 2022 was like a mess season at the G5 level. So it's possible.
Yeah. Well, so this is where I wrote it. I wrote three weeks maybe. I said it all depends on where the losses are, but I could see them as good as 8-2 before finishing 8-4.
Yeah.
But even then, if that happens, they'd have enough ranked weeks. And like if they got to 8-2, they'd already have been ranked, I think, within 3 separate weeks.
Yeah.
Gotta be. Like that's just
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling genuinely good about that one because I think they can still have a disappointing season we all hate, but have achieved that goal.
And I think because say they're 8-2, they'd be ranked at 8-2.
Oh hell yeah!
And
they'd be like
top,
probably like top 15
maybe.
Yeah,
but they lose to West Virginia. I think they're still ranked the week after,
unless they get crushed. But even then, 8-3. And honestly, like, and then Utah, because remember the final week counts too. Like, say they lose to Utah, but then they win the bowl game to go 9-4. Kansas did that last year and went 9-4, and they finished ranked. Like that, there's, I don't know. I'm seeing. I think this season's definitely disappointment if they can't at least find their way into the top 25 for a couple weeks. Like that has to happen.
Yeah. All right, next one is sellout crowds. The line at 3.5.
This was the one I had the hardest time with.
I don't know. I don't have much to really back this up, but I took the over. I know. What did you say last year? You told me this earlier, and I didn't really realize it. But you said they only had one real sellout.
So
one announced sellout.
It's all BS anyway. These are made up numbers, and UCF doesn't even really have a set capacity. Like the official capacity of the bounce house is 44,206. So anything above that is a sellout. And they were above that for one game last season. Can you tell me the game?
West Virginia.
Villanova.
Oh, yeah. I think you might have even told me that, honestly.
Yeah.
Was that the family weekend game?
Maybe. I think.
Should have been. Yeah, it had to have been. Yeah.
But so it's just this season, like I know UCF has announced some sellouts, but as far as I'm looking at like what games are actually going to be over 44,206, and some of it depends on how the season goes. I don't know if New Hampshire will, to be honest. Like the Kent State game was crazy, a good crowd in Villanova last year because it was like, wow, we're a Power 5 team for the first time ever. That's worn off now. Now it's just 2 games people kind of want to get through. Colorado, absolutely. Everyone knows that one. I think I'd probably put Utah second as most likely, but that depends on how the season's going. If they're having like a dream season or even even if they're just having a season where they're in the Big 12 race, I think any home game can eclipse that. But if they're having losing games early, not achieving that, I don't know. I'm not.
So I took the over, and that's why I kind of went that way. I think Sam Houston might be a sellout. I think because, like you said, the Villanova point makes me even feel more confident because it's family weekend. It's a Saturday. Like that's the problem with the New Hampshire game is it being a Thursday night, but it's the first Saturday home game of the season. It is family weekend, and I don't know. I think there's a chance for that one. Colorado, absolutely. I think if they're in a point where they're playing pretty well and like they're in it and there's these are big games. Homecoming is BYU. I think BYU that could be a sellout in October. The space game I think could be a sellout because of just the space game lore.
You're actually talking me into this because even this way, if they beat Florida,
Cincinnati be sold out. So that's why
maybe you're talking me into this. Okay, you know what? I took the under and I'm committed to that, but I think I'm going to lose this one. I think you're right. It's not a competition anyway. I can't lose.
Yeah, so we never have gone back and actually looked at our record on these, but I'm sure
is a competition.
But yeah, I think especially like if they beat Florida, I think that crowd for the Cincinnati game is gonna be crazy.
I totally checked my record for last year, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was it?
6 and 6.
I 6 and 6. I could do it. I can't do it on the fly because I don't have all of the numbers, but I have all my predictions from last year. But I don't.
The year before we did
numbers.
10, and I think I went 7 and 3. So I had a really good 2022, but mainly because like most of those were about hitting JRP. So that played a role in making it easier, but
so this one's another one. The next one's another one that we've borrowed from last year, which is all Big 12 selections. So at the end of the season, they have the first team and second team, all Big 12. How many players from UCF? We set the line at 3.5. Last year they had 3.
Yeah.
I took the over, but I don't feel good about it.
I took the under, and I it's not that I don't think UCF is going to be worthy of that. I just think that this is like no one's ever seen what one of these ballots looks like for a 16-team conference before. And I just don't think anyone's going to have a lot of players because it's so many freaking teams. And on top of that, UCF's best players are all at positions that are stacked in this league. Like KJ has to go up against Shadur Sanders, Avery Johnson, Cam Rising, Jalen Daniels, RJ Harvey. It's like every team in this league has an insane running back, like Taj Brooks, Ollie Gordon. Like all the positions of the most likely players to hit that, there are a ton of other elite players at those positions in the conference. So really, especially like I'm curious about that because every team, even like the Blue Bloods, are going to see their numbers dip, right? Because all these conferences are so freaking big now.
Yeah, and I don't feel good about this, but I took the over, but I listed, I don't know, if KJ has a 35, 36 touchdown season, maybe he ends up having, enough to be second team. Because there's so much around Shador
There's
that's like,
so many
yeah.
good quarterbacks in this league,
Um,
man. I just don't
and
know.
then I said like RJ last year, I think had a case for it, but and I think aren't there two running backs on each team? I think there was, and they
Yeah,
didn't.
or
He
there's
still
like
didn't
a
make it last year,
utility.
which I think was
Yeah.
crazy.
So
Um,
RJ, I guess, like I would, but again, RJ is about to be splitting reps with Penny and might be a better player, but with worse
yeah.
stats. So I don't know.
And I had Kobe as a possibility. He's on the preseason ballot this year. Same with Lee Hunter. I think maybe if Xavier Townsend has a good, kick and punt return season, like he might make it as that. What kind of ended up pushing me was like last year, and I know last year was what a 14 team conference. Now it's a 16 team conference.
Yeah.
And I think there being more teams is going to make it difficult. But I think Texas and Oklahoma being gone might help or may
Mm,
help offset that a little bit.
that's a
I
good
looked at
point.
last year's list, and there were just, I mean, Texas was very good, so it was warranted. But Texas had like 6 or 7 guys, maybe, probably even more. But they had a lot of players on there.
This is actually bringing up a really interesting point for the Big 12 in particular, because, these are not scientific. These are voters.
Yeah,
And historically in these conferences, one team's having a really good year and they dominate, and then they go ahead and dominate the postseason awards. Like UCF when they were good in the AAC, it was like you go look at like the all AAC players, and it was just UCF's roster. And
yeah.
in the Big 12, where I don't think I could be wrong. We've never seen this league before. It's a group of teams who've never all played together before. It's a huge league. Maybe it won't work this way, but people are assuming it's going to be so balanced. Like I'm listening to national podcasts where they're like, I don't think anyone's going to be better than 9-3 or like worse than 4-8. Like they're all just going to be like the same. How do you, does the team that's winning the conference title or playing for it still dominate? Or is everyone so similar that everyone just gets like sort of like a smattering of players? I don't know.
No idea. I don't know. We'll see.
College football, I don't think we have a quick outside of UCF thing. I just don't think we fully comprehended how freaking different college football is going to be this year. It's going to feel like a
In
totally
all
different sport
aspects,
from
like
last year.
there will be
Yeah.
things we'll get into the season where we'll be like, oh yeah, that's different. But like we're not
I
thinking
had a
about it
weird
now.
one when
But
I was playing the video game. When I'm playing my first ever game in the video game and I get hit with the 2-minute warning before halftime. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I forgot they had a 2-minute warning. So it's just between stuff like that and just NIL continuing to change and the conferences being completely different and the 12-team playoff. Like we're going to be talking about like bid stealers and stuff in November. Like it's just
even the playoff, and this was another video game thing, but I had a friend text who was like, how does the 12-team playoff work? Because they're like, they were a G5 team, and he was like, I went like 9-3, but I was ranked 20th, and I never got ranked above like 20th. He's like, but I'm in the playoff and I'm playing. I forgot they're playing. And I was like, oh yeah, like you're the highest ranked group of 5 champion, so you're in.
this is probably going to
But
make me sound like I'm not trying to come this across like, oh, I'm so smart, but I'm having this weird thing where I feel like I'm the only person on earth who knows how the playoff works. Like everyone I talk to in my life has no idea. And I feel like it's
including me, I
not.
told you that on Saturday. So when you were here, that's when my friend texted me. I was like, I don't really know how to explain it fully.
And instead of having a conversation about it, I think I was just like, dang, that sucks. And we talked about something else. But
Yeah.
I just feel like it's not that complicated. Like people are acting like, wow, it's so complicated. I think what throws people is that you have to be a conference champion to get the bye. So it's like they're like
Hmm.
a team will be ranked number 2 by the CFP committee and then be the 5th seed. Like I think that's the part that's like throwing people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
And
don't
I
know.
also
And
wonder
it's one
because
of those
remember
things
this
like,
playoff format's only locked in for 2 years, and like I wonder if like regular fans are going to see that and hate it, and then they'll change that going forward, which would kind of suck because I like the conference title games having a lot of value. But
yeah. Um, yeah, it's one of those things where like I'll go back and read like what it actually is. And it makes sense to me immediately and it'll refresh me. But it's like
yeah,
enough time has passed since they like announced how it's gonna be that I'm like, oh yeah, how does that all work? Like I know aspects of it, but I'm not like
they've
well versed in
also
it.
already changed the format since formally announcing the format, which is part of it because then the Pac-12 died, and because it was
Um,
originally 6 conference champions and 6 at-larges for 12 teams, and the Pac-12 died, and they were like, actually, we're going to do 5 conference champions and 7 at-larges because at one point there was a serious conversation of does the winner of Oregon State, Washington State just
yeah,
get a spot in the playoff? But yeah,
and that can't happen. It'd be funny if it was. Last one, our twelfth one is FS1 appearances set at 5.5.
had a lot
Um,
last year, man.
they did, and people got very tired of it very quickly.
Last year, UCF played on FS1 7 times, and that does not include their FS2 appearance against Texas Tech.
I took the under, but I don't feel good about it.
I took the under because this fan base is going to explode into a ball of flame if it's the over, and I just can't. Because that also means the season's going badly. If the Big
Yeah,
12, if Fox and the Big 12 and everyone over and over again are just like stick them on FS1. Now I will say we already know some of the games. There are at least
5 of them are
4,
not.
5, 5.
isn't it? Because the Florida
Yes,
game's not going to be
that's
on.
right. New
Yeah.
Hampshire, Sam Houston, TCU, Florida, and Utah are all guaranteed to not be an FS1 game.
Yeah.
TCU and Utah are Fox games.
Yep.
Like the networks seem to think that UCF has a shot at being a draw this year with the way they're scheduling them already. So
Yes.
I am hopeful that will not be the case. I have a hard time seeing it. What are your games right now? Like, let's pick some FS1 games on the
I
schedule.
looked at the schedule and picked some of my FS1 games.
Okay,
I
I'm
think
saying
Cincinnati's an FS1
Cincinnati.
game.
I think BYU has potential. I
Yeah.
think Arizona State has potential.
Yeah.
Wait, unless
what?
Arizona State is like a 10 p.m. kick, in which case it'll probably be an ESPN game.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Like I think even, and I don't think it's gonna be the case, but I think even like maybe Iowa State's an FS1 game, or like one of West Virginia or Arizona, like depending on the way the season's going. Like,
right.
I don't know. And I looked at, it's not announced yet, but like the Colorado game, like I cannot see that being an FS1 game. Although the schedule, the Big 12 schedule for that week, but listen to the Big 12 schedule for that week, because it's pretty, like, it's stacked. It's Oklahoma State at Kansas State is that same week. TCU at Kansas is also that same week, which I think that one might end up being on FS. If UCF beats TCU, that game could, I think, easily slide to FS1. But also Arizona at Utah is that week. So there's some other Big 12 games that week. I don't know what, like, hopefully we don't have the kickoff times and stuff yet, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think it won't be FS1, but
I'm going to counter that with last year, more people watched Colorado State than the Iron Bowl.
That's insane.
So no, that game
won't
that'll
wear off at any point.
What?
Will that wear off? Will that wear off?
Not this season. Especially not now. They're going to be better.
It's just, that's insane to me.
The thing you have to understand about Colorado is it's the only team in college football that is a big deal outside of college football. Like, just people in my life who do not follow college football know about Deion Sanders at Colorado and watch those games. So
it's also, and I forgot this happened, it's also the fact that, like, he's starting to stack his coaching staff with, like, big names. Like, Warren Sapp is going to be, like, I think he's like a coaching, it's like I don't know if he's a grad assistant, but like he's like an assistant, but like I forgot, it was announced in a weird way where I was like, oh really? But yeah, I forgot about that until like last week, that Warren Sapp is going to be on the sidelines or whatever, maybe in the booth, but he's going to be with Colorado this year. Like, that's crazy to me.
I'm looking at some of the numbers last year. It truly is just crazy. Like, literally more people watched Colorado play Colorado State at 10 p.m. That was the 10 p.m. kip. Then watched the Iron Bowl. Then watched LSU Alabama. Then watched Texas Alabama. Then watched Tennessee Alabama. Then watched Oklahoma Texas. Like, the 10 p.m. kick against a Group of 5 team. I really just, it's
Deion Sanders, man. The on the Colorado staff page, it lists him as Deion Coach Prime Sanders.
Well, we have Coach George O'Leary on a statue, so I think it all works out.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean that's a graduate assistant, Warren Sapp. He's a grad assistant. Like, that's crazy to me.
It's a made for television product, and I'm going to enjoy UCF getting to be a part of that for 1 week and hopefully winning the game. This is such a me thing, but it's so on the line for me personally, because I can't have people saying Colorado's uniforms are better. I can't have UCF being the worst dressed black and gold team in that game. And I feel like UCF winning, we talked a lot about on this podcast, much to my chagrin, how people think that, the result of the game impacts how good the uniform looks. People talk about the 2023 space uniform as the best space uniform ever now, a lot of people did not like it when it was unveiled. Why did they not like it when it was unveiled? Because UCF was in the midst of a losing streak. And so everything was bad. Then they won the game and people were like, actually, it's the best one ever. Like, people just can't regulate their emotions at all when it comes to uniforms. So if UCF wins, then they will have the best uniforms ever. And if UCF loses, then everyone's going to be like, oh, I can't believe Colorado does it better than we do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's it. Those are our 12. We got through it. This is always, I don't know if I said it was a long time ago. It was only an hour ago, but I think I said at the beginning of the podcast, this is one of my favorites we do all off season. I don't know why. I think this is like, that's probably why
this one.
That's why I got to the conclusion where I said, like, football's back. It's not back, but like the fact that we were doing this podcast topic, I was like, yeah, like we're about here.
You've texted me probably maybe 3-4 times over the last few months of like getting closer to the Over Unders podcast. Like, that's kind of like your marking time for like the season is here. Yeah. It's fun. Yeah. It's always a fun one to do.
That's great. All right. Football news. There's just this little bit. UCF announced its game day themes for 2024. The first bounce is against New Hampshire, obviously. Family weekend against Sam Houston, as I mentioned earlier. Military appreciation against Cincinnati. Homecoming will be BYU. We knew the space game was Arizona, and then obviously we knew senior night was going to be Utah. So a lot of those we already knew, but they formalized them and
Now
put
I
them
can
out
start
there.
thinking about uniform combos though, now that we know this.
Yeah,
So that's exciting.
that's true. That's true. That's it. That's all I have for news. So we'll go to tweet of the week.
What would you wear for the Utah game? I've been thinking about this.
That feels like a blackout.
Feels like a blackout, right? That's what I was
Well,
thinking.
yeah, blackout or night mode with a gold helmet, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Something about the Black Friday
Because
game just
it's at
feels
night.
like it's at night. It just feels like a
Yeah,
blackout to me. I don't know.
it
I just feel
does.
like that has to be a blackout.
Probably should be.
UCF's gonna wear like white helmets, black jerseys, white pants, or something though, which
Oh
would
no,
be
it does. That
fine.
doesn't
That's a
even
good look
sound
too.
right. But it doesn't sound right though for
No,
that
see, it
game.
doesn't. I even
It
said it.
has
I'm
to be
like, no,
black. It
they
has to be
can't do that. It
blackout.
has to be black.
Blackout
Okay.
or gold, black, black. That's it. All right. Tweet of
Yeah.
the week.
Tweet of the week. I don't have a tweet of the week this week. You guys got to start getting in some fights. I don't know what's going on. There's been too much harmony, especially among the Big 12 teams. Why don't you guys hate each other more? I thought that would go away after one season, and you stayed in. I think the ACC collapsing in on itself like a dying star in deep space has definitely made the Big 12 teams continue to feel like,
Yeah,
you
because
know,
lately all the Big 12 Twitter talk has just been centered around like we're gonna get Florida State and Clemson. Like
which
they're all
is
just like together, like, yeah, like this is happening. They've
yeah,
all just accepted that happening.
it's which is
So there's
hilarious
been
because I
no
still
like
don't
fights.
think I do not believe that's happening. And I know everything. I also want to give a shout out to how we talked about a lot going to the Big 12 of I know that UCF's going to develop a rivalry with some team because that always happens. It happened with Cincinnati. And so far, the only team that UCF has developed any kind of connection with is Oklahoma State, who just keeps giving UCF very warm props for beating them. There's no meanness
They
behind
just
it at
don't
all.
like, yeah, they just don't want to play us anymore because of the space camp.
It's
They're
such a
afraid
weird
of
thing where
space.
I watched UCF annihilate a top 15 team, and now I love that fan base. Like, that's stupid that that's what happened. I want to hate them, and instead I think they're
I
awesome.
feel
It's
like I liked
ridiculous.
them anyway before, like going into this. I
I
think
remember being a little indifferent. Like, I didn't really know what to make of them. I'd had some good experiences, some bad, and now they're just all lovely people, and that sucks because I wanted
I
a
still
rivalry.
I still think I'm gonna end up hating West Virginia the most.
Yeah, West Virginia fans are a lot, so we'll see.
I don't think I liked them very much going into the Big 12 just because of like they were probably the least welcoming. I don't know if they were the least, but they were not very welcoming, I don't think. And then and it's not by no fault of their own, but because of how many West Virginia fans there were and because of how that game went last year, I was just around a lot of West Virginia fans and their happiness annoyed me. It's not their fault. Their team was winning. They were happy, but it bothered me and I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy the experience. And I'm afraid of this game this year because I feel like it's not going to go well for UCF. So I'm just
And it
going to
can't be
come
a
out of that.
rivalry unless UCF wins one. I
That's
also
fair.
got to say that last year I replied to some random West Virginia fan because they were saying we're going to come into the bounce house and win by 2 scores. And I replied and said, no one has won by 2 scores in the bounce house since 2016. So good luck with that. Then West Virginia did exactly that. And dozens and dozens of West Virginia fans immediately pulled up that tweet from like 5 months prior. And again, should make me mad. I was just like, I'm impressed. Like, I didn't even remember tweeting it. And they were all like, we've been holding on to this one. Like, maybe
Yeah.
it's just hard to hate passionate fan bases. Maybe I hated all
They
the
have
AAC
internet in
schools.
Morgantown. Who knew?
Bailey trying to do his own thing to stoke the flame. I do have to say, I learned that, my dad and his college friends go to a UCF road game every year. And I learned just today that they're apparently going to West Virginia. And my immediate reaction was,
It's a good one.
my immediate reaction was, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you go
No,
to
it's a good one
Morgantown?
though.
Really?
I've had
How are you going to say that when we didn't even sort of discuss doing that as our game?
well because I think I removed it from my list. Maybe I did. I don't know if it's still there, but I had West Virginia as a road state, like a stadium that I wanted to see just because of Country Road. But then I publicly on this podcast trashed that song at some point, like a few months ago. It's still probably
Is it
it's
true
still
that
a
the
good
song's
song.
not about West Virginia? I heard that once.
I have no idea.
Like, he's not in West Virginia. He's driving somewhere else. I don't know. I feel like someone said that on Twitter once, but I'm not sure if it's
Take me
true.
home, Country Roads, West Virginia. Blah, blah. I don't know.
I don't
I have
know.
no idea.
We'll just throw baseless
Wait,
accusations
well, so
about a
you said
song
you
out
don't
there.
have tweet of the week, but did you have something in place of it or no?
Yes, I did. Got distracted.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
go ahead and do that. I'll look up and see if Country Roads is about West Virginia.
Since this is the Over Unders podcast and we're talking about the season coming up, I've decided to dedicate tweet of the week to whatever the ridiculous fights you are going to have on Twitter every single week about crazy things, whether that be Boise State wearing blue uniforms or the DJ hating the fan base or rushing the field. I can't wait to find out what they're going to be. I'm not like being mean or sarcastic. I truly can't wait because I know it's going to be some unhinged stuff that will be very fun for a lot of us. And I love that we don't know right now. Like right now I have no idea. And then we'll get to like the BYU game and people will have some crazy thing for that game that they're mad about. And I'm looking forward to that. So tweet of the week is dedicated to what I'm sure will provide me many tweet of the weeks during the season. And it's whatever crazy things UCF Twitter decides to be pissed about in a given week.
Cool. I like it. I thought about doing that as like a topic for our overs and unders. It was like how like I didn't know how I could really quantify it though. I'm trying to find. I thought that was going to take longer. Because there's a debate, I guess, about whether it's about West Virginia or Western Virginia.
Oh, maybe that's what I heard. Okay.
But I think it is West Virginia. I'm still like looking for the answer. But I think it's West Virginia. It's
Okay.
West Virginia's state song, apparently.
I apologize to West Virginia for slandering their song that they're proud of and have made uniforms based off of in the past. So it's not like Florida, who had a Tom Petty day, even though he'd never been to their games before.
Well, what was their thing? Is he's like a Gainesville native or something?
I don't
Did he
even
live
know.
in Gainesville? Or I think he was born in Gainesville. I don't know. There's something there.
It's
Yeah, he
like
was born
UCF.
in
It's like UCF honoring King Charles because he has knights. Like I
he was
don't.
born in Gainesville. That's what it was.
Cool.
So that's what they always say, Gainesville's own Tom Petty.
Probably because he's the
I don't
only
know.
person of note to ever come out of that swamp/city. So you have to honor him. I don't know.
I like Tom Petty. But yeah, that's like their thing now,
I did
I
like
guess.
until I knew where he was from. So
Or just you're just out here slandering a dead guy because
is Tom Petty dead? I didn't know that.
yes, he died like I think that's when they started the traditions, like when he died.
I barely know who Tom Petty is, to be honest with you. He's a country singer. Is that a thing?
We need to end the podcast before
Is it
people.
not? Is he not country? I always thought he was country.
It's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh yeah, he died a while ago.
Yeah, like I think what year was it?
2017. I didn't mean to make fun of a dead person. I just want to apologize for that. I thought he
Yeah.
was still alive when I made that comment.
Yeah, I think the tradition started in 2017 actually.
All I have to say is he was born in Gainesville and died in Santa Monica, California. So that tells you a lot about what the people from Gainesville think of Gainesville.
All right.
All
And
right.
there's a rock band, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Okay.
So, yeah. There's your lesson for the day.
I know who Tom Petty is now.
Yeah, good. Good stuff. All right, we will be back next week with episode 217. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at by CA Simmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us. We will talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.